Talk 360. Talk 360. For in-depth analysis on the week's news with Latif.
On 98.4 Capital FM in the studio this afternoon, three gentlemen very well known to the listeners of this show, and they are very outspoken, never shy away from speaking their mind, which is one of the good reasons why we have them in the studio this afternoon. I have Benji Ndolo, he's the founder director of the Organization for National Empowerment, ONE. Moses Kuria, political and social analyst, and I also have Kimuli, he's an advocate and a political aspirant in the next election. I hope you still have some ambition.
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay, good. I just wanted to establish that I'm not campaigning for you when you've thrown in the towel. Gentlemen, we have a lot to talk about today. We are going to talk about the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, the saga there. Today we have the BVR on, then we have it off, then we have it back on, then we have the cabinet coming in and saying no, we need it on. We also have to talk about the Court of Appeal ruling that, well, elections need to be held after January 15th next year. Get some bit of a reaction to that. And also let's talk about what's happening in London. There's the Olympics. We saw what Tirunesh did to us. Our pocket rocket was basically just put in the pocket, and Tirunesh took off with her. And also we've just seen Kenya losing the Olympics marathon, women's marathon. Well, we didn't have it, but we had high hopes of winning it. Also, all that is happening. And also, in the coming week, we're expecting a ruling on the Nancy Baraza Tribunal. So let's hear a bit of that. And we have to talk about post-election violence and the quest for justice. And you guys have been here. You've been championing the need to make sure that we get all the perpetrators, not just the big fish, but even the smallest of all fish being brought to book. So, what do you want to start with? We start with the post-election violence. Moses, I know you have a lot of passion and angst in this. It's deep inside you.
Thank you, Eric. I'm sure you've seen the story on in the Sunday Nation today.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, I'm quite angry about this particular issue, whereby a Kenyan woman positively identifies that policeman so and so raped me, and according to this story, the policeman is still serving in the force. And I've been on Twitter this morning, talking to various personalities, and I do hope that justice will be done, because we talk about post-election violence as if it is some blanket something. At the end of the day, we have to break it up to personal responsibilities and come to the point of direct perpetrators. So where we have got a direct perpetrator, we would expect that especially our friends from civil society would be able to come on this issue with the same vigor as they come on the other personalities, because we are not saying that this policeman instigated or did something. He said this policeman committed rape, and he's never been interrogated, and I really do hope that something is going to be done in this.
What is just not clear to me is whether this particular case of this lady and the police men that she's alleging is among the cases that are still pending in court, or is it not a case at all?
It's not a case at all. Nobody has ever been interrogated. This woman recorded a statement at Pangani police station. This policeman has never been arrested or been questioned, and he's known. And justice in totality is equals to justice for the for all the individuals who are affected. So if we can't have justice for Nancy Wanjiru, how can we have justice for victims?
And it's not just Nancy. There are very many, Benji,
exactly.
and the civil society sits in Nairobi, talks very much about the other suspects who are facing cases at The Hague. 3 of them come back, they're cleared. We still have some more who are there. But you guys never talk about the Nancy Wanjirus, the Wanjikos, the Achiengs, the Omondis.
The ICPC, I think, as you know, International Center for Policy and Conflict, has continued to do an audit of the local prosecutions. I think there have been about 5 or 6 that have actually gone to court. There have been 2 low-level convictions. At a press conference about 2 months ago, Latif, I specifically pointed out that of all the different reforms that have been occurring in this country, where the reforms are lagging and where they're extremely wanting is in the police service. And the police oversight board is in place now. Tom Kagwe from the civil society side is the deputy. we have continued to agitate for greater reforms. I think this particular instance is tragic, is sad, is unacceptable, and shows you that the rule of law, as Moses says, certainly has a long way to go in this country. And yes, it may seem that the 4 or 6 suspects were most of the focus on the civil society side, but that is a bit of a misunderstanding of how we look at it. We are continuing to agitate, and
hold on.
As he's saying,
hold on.
yes.
You normally have press conferences almost every 2 days a week.
We
had a conviction. Was it last month?
Yes.
I would have expected, the least I would have expected is at least the civil society to hold a press conference to say, yes, we are happy that this has happened. We have gotten a conviction. This person has been sent to jail. This case has come to a conclusion. We have so far this number of cases. We have never, Maurice, we've never had the civil society saying, calling a press conference to just give us a tab of what's
It's
happening.
the approach. It's the approach. It was a drop in the ocean. The one conviction was a drop in the ocean.
It's a very fundamental drop.
And so the approach has been top down. So to start with the biggest fish and coming downwards. But you make a good point, and we'll just continue to agitate more. I'll make a personal undertaking to continue to push for the prosecution of the low-level perpetrators locally. I will do that.
I hope the undertaking that my colleague makes is enforceable. It is not just binding in honor, but we will bind you to it.
Please.
But again, the civil society is ordinarily very selective in their agitation. And they may fail sometimes to conveniently notice when something like this happens. But when I look at the case that has headlined the nation today about the fate of this lady who was raped by a police officer, my view is that this is not just an isolated case.
It's not.
It is the story that has remained untold or has not come out. And I have no doubt whatsoever that action is going to be taken on this story. The reason being that it is now on the cover, major newspaper. But the problem is, in this country, we only take action when something comes out in this manner. The police are quite lethargic, and I have always been of the view that we need to take away all prosecutorial powers from the police to give them to the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, because the police are very inept when it comes to investigating crimes. Unless these crimes are sensationalized, they will not investigate. And most of us will suffer down there because there is no one to sensationalize what ails us. And therefore, we need a fundamental shift of approach in policing in this country.
Indeed. And, what's shocking is that this is so many years later. We are coming into another election. Here we are again. We are heading into an election. We may probably not have violence in the next election, but we don't know about 2017, 2022. We don't know unless we make sure that we have everything in order.
Latif, in a very ironic way, this particular instance proves again or makes a case why we are at The Hague. Our systems are broken. Our systems are incapable. They are inept. So in a very roundabout and reverse way, this again makes a case for why we are at The Hague.
I certainly don't agree with that. I think this case is a proof of how much time The Hague is wasting for us. Because where we have got known people who committed crimes, whether it's the case of Nakuru, where somebody was convicted, or the case of, because the time we spent in The Hague, if this particular policeman was charged, arrested, and taken to court, a lot more policemen would be running from that. But we don't need The Hague to be able to do that. No. So I think The Hague is giving us some sort of anesthetic approach. Yes, so we have an alternative because we have got enough. If today, and I think that policeman is so lucky I'm not the president of this country, because if you really want to fix this guy, you have got enough within our legislation. You are a lawyer, you should know better. To be able to take this guy and charge him, investigate him, and say that, so that, it's no, don't tell me that, yes, I agree it's wrong, and that's why I'm really feeling angry that
The Hague is
that somebody is doing that. But I think our focus needs to be to actually divide justice. Justice should be divisible. Everybody should get their fair share of justice. It should not be that the big guy or a small guy. You should get 1 out of 40 million share of justice.
And that is
There's
the
no
role
justice
of the
for a big
government.
guy or a small guy. I agree with you.
The role of the
I
government.
totally
the
agree with you.
government has done
The
nothing.
government.
This woman is now crying.
No,
today
I
because the
agree with
government
you.
has done nothing.
I agree with you. That's what we need to do, is to actually force government, force police commissioner not to sleep on this matter for 5
so
years.
what's your problem with The Hague, Moses? Are you thinking that The Hague is shifting our
my
attention?
problem with The Hague is that as long as The Hague happens there, and you talk about the so-called big fish and small fish, so many of these other small, and let me not call them small, because I don't believe they are small, where a woman says, this guy raped me. That's not small. Yeah? That policeman is a very big fish.
Yeah.
That he has not been prosecuted, that's very, very big fish. I would rather we focus every minute of our time in rooting for these guys and letting them face justice.
So how about the guys who paid them to go and the people who perpetrated, the people who orchestrated the violence?
Well, let this police guy go and say that somebody paid him. Then we did it from there. But everybody should be held accountable for their action.
Okay.
If this policeman say Eric Latif paid me to go and rape a woman, then I'll come for Eric Latif.
Latif is like the example people say all the time, that I'm as Catholic as a Pope. The fact remains you're not the Pope. So in this case, Moses is not the president, and the political will is lacking. That is why the prosecutions, that is why the execution of this agenda to fight for justice in Kenya and fight for justice for the victims is not happening. What has happened is that the victims are being re-victimized by the big fish turning out and saying that they, in essence, are the actual victims.
Precisely.
So in that shift, then re-victimization of this poor lady, Nancy Wanjiru, occurs. And again, Moses is not the president. The current president or whoever is in power have no political will, and therefore 5 years later, as commander-in-chief, with a chief of police, with a police in uniform in Kenya, we've had 4 trials of 5 and 2 convictions. Pitiful and a big embarrassment.
And you blame The Hague.
Then you don't turn around and blame The Hague.
Indeed. Now let's move on to the
Next
issue
topic.
of the IEBC. First of all, the Court of Appeal has come out and said, apart from Justice Martha Koome, everybody else says, well, we agree with Lenaola and his bench that the way of holding an election, one of them is after the term of the current parliament, and that's January 14th next year. And so the IEBC is okay to have announced March 4th general election. But we still have some political noises that want elections to be held in December. Are you among the political noises, Moses?
Well, I was here with you and Mr. Oswago, and I think I said my piece that if I had my way, elections would have been held in December. I think we have exhausted the mechanism for the judicial process to determine the election date.
Not yet.
And I have resigned to fate that the elections are going to
Not
be held
yet.
on the 4th of March. Unless, of course, we have got people who
We want to take it to the Supreme Court.
We want to take it to the Supreme Court, and then because I always say something that if you the more you elongate this process, I think Kenyans are happier. The truth of the matter is that Kenyans are in morbid fear of this election. It's not about whether it is August or December or March. Kenyans, if you ask them,
It's
really,
just
they will-
the term
it's
election.
something they wouldn't even want to face, and that's a sad reality. Don't forget, Eric, that if we were to follow the constitution strictly, the elections would have been held next week.
Yes.
Yeah, it's next week actually.
You're
So
right.
I doubt I would have been here with you anyway. But or my friend here who is a candidate, would have, within 1 week's time. So if you're saying that next week would have been the elections if you were to be held in August,
I think
and we still want to play hanky panky with
we're not
March
have held
4th,
elections next week. Come on, with the constitutional interpretation by the court, the lower court, and now the Court of Appeal is that the elections, these first elections, were never going to be held in August. That we are done. It was the issue of December's and the Marches.
Latif.
August was done and dusted.
Latif, I sent you an article. I know for a fact I sent you an article that was published on the different blogs and I think the Star newspaper, where I explained very carefully that in order to get something, you must pay something. And so constitutionally speaking, and I'm very amazed that I'm almost agreeing today with Moses on just about everything. August 2012.
Who has changed?
August 2012,
Who has
exactly.
converted?
I don't know.
The
But
two of you.
August 2012 is when we were supposed to have elections, as Martha Karua likes to say, inside of the 5-year term. And transitional clauses and all of that notwithstanding, law serves man and not the other way around. And so what I was talking about in my article, which I know you saw, I know very well that you saw, is that we needed very strong leadership in this country to make Solomonic wisdom and say, look, whatever it will take to transition over to the next administration. After all, we have a mongrel of an administration now in the coalition government that has had a record number of scandals and all manner of madness that you would imagine. We had really wanted that, constitutionally speaking, we have elections in August 2012. Now that train has left the station, I am on record in the Chief Justice's Judiciary Transformation Network, of which I'm a member, saying that I personally think Justice Martha Koome is independent-minded, progressive, and that her particular ruling that elections be inside of that window as much as possible, I think she's coming to January 15, 2013, it demonstrates her judicial, temperament and her fidelity to the law, because
she
Latif,
said it's the way you wanted.
It's no. It's very important. It's very important that we do everything in obedience of the law, and that we have to understand that all these institutions and everything in this country has got to be subservient to the Constitution. I think, my final point, that given a chance, the IEBC would rather take this election to 2014. They are not ready. They are lethargic. They feel they are not ready. They have a lot of issues, and of course they are earning salaries, etc. So, going by the tone and language of Isaac Hassan, and we're going into that topic in a little bit, I think that they'd be happy if we even did these elections in 2014. So, we must remind them that they are subservient to the Constitution of Kenya, and they should do whatever it takes to actually, ideally, do elections in August 2012.
Perhaps the question I should be asking is does it make sense for anybody now to go to court to take this matter further to the Supreme Court?
No.
Would it be advisable?
It does. Let me tell you why, Eric, and I've thought about this very deeply. I've examined it myself. And the reason is the question of when the election will be held in this country, the first general election under the Constitution, is so fundamental that we all deserve to know what the correct position is. Now we have heard the High Court. I said here before that the High Court made some fundamental errors in interpreting the Constitution when they settled on the election date.
Yeah.
They left it open. I'm glad the Court of Appeal said that you should not have left it as open as it was.
Yep.
They gave the principals the power to dissolve Parliament and to decide at some point in time when the elections will be held. I'm glad the Court of Appeal said no, the principals do not have that power. But this was, the Court of Appeal was doing something our judiciary has been doing of late, to try to rule by convenience. They examine the convenience, they look at which way it will be more convenient for us to rule, and that is why I agree with Benji that Martha Koome, a judge I have tremendous respect for, appeared to be more, independent in her decision. I know logistically and in terms of the
just
procedures.
a question here, just to clear the air. When you say, you and Benji, when you say that Martha Koome appears to be more independent, are you implying that the others are not?
No, I'm not saying not independence in the sense of having been compromised, but independent in the sense that you apply your mind. Now, in law, we say that you can rule against me. You can make your decision against me because you have got that privilege as a judicial officer. But for heaven's sake, give proper reasons for your ruling against me. That is what we call ratio desidenti in legal jargon. So that when you look at the reasoning that goes into the decision of the four judges, it is somehow simply replicates the thinking of the High Court judges. And I do not blame them, because the bench that sat in the High Court to determine this matter was very high quality minds. And it would have been expected that the judges who were now sitting on appeal, who had just previously been in the High Court, would be persuaded, like most people were, by the people who had made that decision in the High Court.
Yeah.
But that is why I'm saying Martha Koome appeared more independent-minded in that she went deep into the issues and decided for the sake of it. And I am saying, let this matter be taken to the Supreme Court. For heaven's sake, the Supreme Court has been sitting idle for so long, and they need to have their voice heard on this before we blame the judiciary in future for having settled on a date. We need to give them a chance to determine, for whatever it is worth.
Moses, aren't we just wasting time?
I would rather leave the lawyers to and the courts to, because there's only one step now left, that is the Supreme Court. My question is, even if they would have said it's December, the Electoral Commission is not ready. Even if they would have said it is August, they are not ready.
Yeah.
Even if now they say we need more time, it is August next year, they are not going to be ready. I'm disappointed because I was expecting that I'll find Mr. Oswago here. And we have given Oswago, they have done very well on all the by-elections. We are always at like allegiance every time they are receiving the results. We have encouraged them. We have supported them. They did the referendum very well. But, where there is smoke, there is fire. I've always argued that the new commissioners should have been given the a free passage to appoint an incoming CEO. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we changed the commissioners. We did not change the CEO.
You didn't change the secretariat.
Yeah? And what they're not telling us, they are hopelessly divided. That's why you find here in this newspaper, you find Oswago saying that IEBC is rotten. For heaven's sake, how can you say I'm the CEO of a rotten organization? So where is the rot? Who is the rot? What's happening?
He's being independent.
No, but we know very well that Mr. Oswago and Mr. Hassan and the commissioners, they don't see eye to eye on anything. They have been trying. They have been doing a very good job.
Let me
of
state here for
diplomacy.
the record. I'd invited Mr. James Oswago, the CEO of the IEBC, but he couldn't make it, and he had actually initially he had confirmed that he was gonna try and make it, and then later he couldn't make it. He would have been here.
Yeah, but
he is an independent.
I would have been very surprised if he agreed to come here. He would have agreed to come here because now, even if you call Hassan, he will not come because none of them want to blink fast between the commissioners and the executive. And the other question is, if you look at the Kreger report, we talked about having, because I have got my own issues with my good friend, Mr. Oswago. But on the other hand, why do we have the commissioners almost playing out day-to-day executive roles in the commission? I thought the reason that, we had Kreger is to ensure that the commissioners play only an oversight role, that they're not every day there in the morning making tea, serving breakfast. Commissioners are supposed to be above board, leave an independent secretariat headed by somebody who has been appointed and recruited competitively, and then only play an oversight role and give that guy, this is a general direction that we are going to take. So much as we would want to continue supporting these people, I doubt even having a judgment on the election date
would help them,
or us giving us all the confidence because you can only do so much.
The point
we're in trouble.
Is, the court will only rule on the basis of what is material placed before it. You recall very well that when this matter was taken to court, before it was taken to court, actually, it was taken for a given that elections would be held in August. But somebody somehow went to court, and then all of a sudden, various options opened. In fact, Mutula was saying, no, is it August or is it December? Then somebody went to court. And you recall very well that the Electoral Commission was rooting for a date in December.
Yep.
Now, this time round, the Electoral Commission did not tell the court that they are unable to conduct an election in December. This is an admission they can make. We are judging them on the basis of what we can see, and perhaps we may be right. But as a judge, I would rather a judge says, look, this on the basis of proper legal fundamentals, the Constitution stated that the election ought to be held on such and such a day. But because the Constitution itself says that it ought to be interpreted in line with the evolving situations, you must apply the principle that the law always speaks. Then we will rule that the election will be held in December, but it will be held in March. So that you first state the legal principle, but then you exercise your discretion, if available to you, on the basis of material placed before you to determine a date outside what the Constitution says. The judges did not do that, but they are moving as though they have a latitude to simply change the Constitution.
That's called wiggling. Let's get into IEBC substantively, Latif. The truth of the matter is two things that I want to start with on the outset. Number one, the IEBC is increasingly sounding and behaving and walking and talking like the ECK. Number two, obviously, the IEBC is under siege from very strong forces. This morning, I was at a press conference on another body called the TJRC that has been stillborn right from birth. And I was expressing to my colleagues there that we need to expend a lot of energy and time in trying to find out what these forces that have the IEBC under siege are. I think that is a judicious spending of our time. Having said that, I have good information, Latif, that on, again, another two areas. A company by the name of 4G was competent, had the capacity, the ability, completely, and capability to do this biometric voter registration. However, that company was incorruptible. That brings me to my second point. The company Symphony, just to use politically correct language, has had very serious integrity issues. And again, I have that information. In fact, I have evidence that these companies, the wrong one was picked, and for nefarious reasons. So having said that, the IEBC, as my colleague Maurice says, as Moses says, is dysfunctional, is messing up once again. And in fact, the praise heaped on how they did the referendum, etc., worries me, because it's just that we have very short memory collectively as Kenyans. But if you listen very carefully and go back in history, the ECK was praised just prior to the mess. So that praise actually worries me. And last but not least, again, I agree with Moses. Commissioners are not supposed to be in the offices on day-to-day running. We need leadership and oversight, and people that have been hired that are competent to do the work. So IBC is broken.
Why don't we borrow this thing? Ghana is going into an election in December. We could borrow this thing. They'll use it in their December polls, and they bring it back to us. We continue using it. Do you think it?
But how does that look? I agree very much.
Forget about what it looks, man. As long as it works.
Yeah.
Borrowing. Did you use the word borrowing?
Yeah.
You know, Latif, Kimuli makes a very, very important point, and that is the boneheaded, plastic, artificial bureaucracy in this country, in the running of systems, and which is as a result of lack of strong leadership again, does a big disservice to this country. Most people in government, and I'm not afraid to say this, are lazy. They do not have time to be innovative, to think of solutions. They don't take their work seriously. So many times we are procrastinating, getting to the end. Look at, for example, the best example on this is just the different transitional implementation clauses that require certain things be done on the timeline. And almost at every instance, they either rush to beat the deadline a week too. Yeah, they're always time bad. And so this culture is what has to change. And in the case of this BVR, I think that we need now to think outside the box. And that is, we should go back to those companies that were shortlisted and very quickly determine what the issue between, for example, 4G and Symphony and the other ones was, and move forward expeditiously with a sense of purpose.
Let's
otherwise, talking about borrowing from Ghana, I don't know how that looks.
But they have already cancelled. You know, now technicalities of law come into play.
But that's what I'm
Once
talking
you
about.
have already published a cancellation of the entire tender, I don't know whether they send specific
any other
letters.
system would be new.
Yes, they have already cancelled.
But the same companies have a right to reapply, right?
To
Yeah,
reapply.
but I think that is not the way to go.
What, cancellation or reapplication?
Even reapplication. Cancellation was in order. I think what we need to do is to say that our national interest, our national security is way, way above all these mundane considerations. I see the way forward in being that the procuring entity, in this case IEBC, Parliament, because I think Parliament has got an important role to play through the committee CIOC, and a select committee of the cabinet, because I think I totally support the cabinet's decision to say that no matter what happens, no matter what the rigmaroles, we need to go for BVR, we need to go for electronic registration. So we need to have a joint team from IEBC, from even the PPOA, and I totally agree with Wakili about his concerns about PPOA, from cabinet and from Parliament. Sit together, and we give them 3 days to single source a supplier for this.
Restricted tendering.
Whether it's from restricted tendering or even from people who never tendered, or even by talking to another jurisdiction, but we need to have a supplier. And I think here,
but if we single
the
source
means
and
are
we
not
get,
important.
and the single source is that one of those companies, maybe Symphony, you guys will still make noise.
That's why I'm saying let's have an all-inclusive process between the various arms of government, between Parliament, between the legislature, between the executive, and between IEBC, so that even if we make the wrong decision, and we might make the wrong decision, but we make the wrong decision as a country.
Collectively
as a country.
Right.
And that matter ends there. Of course, we can leave the civil society to do some little noise 1 or 2 days, but at least we move forward.
So we ask Raila to nominate some people to sit in the tender appointment.
I'm just saying the government, the executive, the executive as it were.
The civil society does not trust the executive, you know.
Well, this country is not about civil society only; it's about us and our collective destiny. Okay, so.
I want you and Benji to disagree. You know, I've been waiting for this.
No, we will disagree on this. But Benji is from the good side of civil society, not the one, not the one I like to call evil society, not civil society. I don't have a problem with civil society. I have a problem with evil society, the evil society that looks only at the negative side of things, not at the positive side. But seriously speaking, we need a concerted effort.
And we need a solution fast, because we are running out of time.
Within the next 7 days, we need to select a supplier. They need to be on the ground. We need to start civic education. We need to start mapping out how we are going to register voters. During the referendum of 2010, we had 12 million registered voters. 2007, we had 14.2 million. Even if you look at the 5% growth rate in our population, we are expecting 18 to 20 million people to be registered. That's not a small task to do.
Yeah.
So let's get going and say that it could have been better, but at least we have some way forward.
Or look at the various strengths of the two companies that are said to be at the head of everything.
Tell them
form a consortium so that you have a strength in this area, you have this. It is something that can be arranged and negotiated so that, yes.
That is called leadership.
Yes.
And that is what is lacking in Kenya.
Yes. Maurice, you need to get into that.
Yes.
That's called leadership, yeah.
It's a legal acumen,
Right.
When you are skilled in providing legal advisory services, you will get it right this way.
And right. Moses, thank you very much, by the way.
That's enough trumpet, Maurice.
We are allowed not to advertise.
That's enough trumpet.
We are allowed to advertise.
That's enough trumpet. Now, let's take some comments. Collins Nyaga says, I have some questions. The IEBC, is it running the house 100%? BVR is good, but what about hackers and malware? Then he also has some questions about the Olympics, and we're going to discuss the Olympics here. Kimani says, what about the clerks' jobs that had earlier been advertised? Do they still hold because the BVR has been rejected? Let them know that if this nation fails again with their politicking, we are going to cast them. We are tired of these false promises.
BVR solution comes with the cyber security component, and many of us are always willing, able, and available to advise. That's the whole part of inclusivity.
You're a cybercrime expert.
No, I know cybercrimes expert.
Okay.
I think I came from private sector, and we are all in this to bring the best solutions forward for a successful election and a stable country. So don't let any justice minister run there on his own and then say, "Oh, I didn't foresee this." We can have a total solution with different appendages and different expertise coming into form, like Kimuli said, a consortium.
But how do you ensure that when you're talking about security, security is a matter of preparations and trials. You have to have a trial run.
Yeah.
You have to lay the process open to the best hackers so that you see whether they can manipulate. Because you don't want to imagine in 2013 a situation where the process is interfered with and votes belonging to one candidate or information is transferred to another. You don't want that possibility.
There's a testing phase, Latif, during process flow methodology design and all of that that happens. There's a word for it actually, but in essence, it's testing.
You give immunity to hackers. You tell them now, guys.
And that's why we need to start sooner rather than later, because we need to go through all of these phases to ensure that we have a robust system.
So do we have time?
Once again, let's not have excuses.
Well, by the way, Benji, is called regression testing.
Yeah,
I've 15 years experience.
How do you get these terms from?
I've got 15 years experience implementing technology platforms. And
he is the expert now.
To implement the BVR is very, very easy. It's very easy. And the other thing also, yes, there are hackstars and malware and all that, but we are not the first country to implement BVR registration. So there must be some set of standards that will be able to safeguard us against this kind of problem. But having said that, I think what we are pointing out to is that we need to have when we were implementing the Constitution, we had something called the reference group. And the reference group was a group of people who would actually play the watchdog role. And when matters became heady in the process, the minister would bring matters to the reference group, where we had now all the civil societies, the political parties and all that. I think we need to have a reference group for this election, because this is not the only issue that is going to arise. And when matters get heady there, it needs to be brought to us, whether if we are in civil society, in the executive, or in parliament. We need to have a platform for knowing where do we, as people of Kenya, people who can have mandate, whether mandate from the people or self-appointed mandate, like civil society, to be able to say, to tell, like, now we have agreed, let's move forward. That this might be the second best option, but let's move forward with it.
Set timelines.
So something is wrong, because if we start now getting stuck and say, now we've gotten stuck on pure procurement, then we go back to manual process. How many other things can go wrong? Are we agreed about election observers?
We haven't started any of all these other things. We haven't started even educating the public about the elections that we're going to hold. Remember, this is the first time that we're going to be voting for county assembly members. We're going to be voting for the governor. We're going to be voting for the senator, for the MP, for
and we are talking
president.
About 3 billion out of, this is just a small, so the commission still has quite a huge chunk of money that vested interest would want to look at.
Believe you me, Eric, if we do two things: one, we let commissioners be non-executive commissioners; two, we go ahead with the recruitment of an independent, competitively recruited chief electoral officer. This process will move forward, and there's not going to be a problem. Because now I think there's so much political vested interest playing at IEBC, and guys who are saints of yesterday, they are the culprits of today.
Let's talk about the Olympics now. First of all, just for the record, Kenya has never won the Women's Marathon Olympics gold medal. But we just saw a very good chance for us to get the gold medal, just go to an Ethiopian. The other day we saw Tirunesh Dibaba just come in and do our pocket rocket lady. She took it away. And now Tirunesh Dibaba says that she's also going for the 5,000 meters race, which means that Vivian Cheruiyot's chances of actually getting the gold depend on how badly Tirunesh Dibaba races on that day. We are about to see our 1, 2, 3 usual 1, 2, 3 steeplechase. Do you see as actually what's your feeling so far about Kenya's performance at the Olympics?
Things are bad, Latif. I watched the 10,000 men's last night. I'm not much of an Olympian, but to be honest, what I saw was that it's gotten very competitive. I mean, your 10,000 meters is 10 kilometers. Yeah. And these guys were running like it was started a 200-meter marathon. In fact, it shocked me. If you remember at the last lap, there's a guy that would pass until it looked like he was running backwards. So two things came to my mind. And one is strength. Two is endurance. Serious training is needed here. Yes, Ethiopia has the altitude and all of that, but serious concerns have been raised in the recent past, especially in the discussion of FKF and football and all of this, that our entourages to the Olympics are having 4 participants and 40 members of the Olympic team and all of this. So I think that the chickens are coming home to roost for us. I think that the concerns in the management of our sports, etc., is in the selection and the process of the selection and all of that has now, bore its fruit. And so the truth is that if we don't,
but then what has changed? Last year, it's
getting more and more competitive.
World Athletics Championships less than 12 months ago, Kenya performed very well. In fact, it was our best ever performance at the Daegu Athletics Championships.
I think that while we have not been very, adept and very good at our training and taking this extremely seriously, the other countries very quietly have been doing a lot of investing and time in their strength training and endurance training. And that is, absolutely the truth. And so when you come and face them, guess what? You have a guy from the UK taking what is traditionally ours.
And it dropped a glass.
People are crying.
When you saw Mo Farah,
I dropped a glass.
People are crying.
Everyone was shouting and saying, "Oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen." Then from nowhere, it's devastating. And I can tell you, I have resigned not to fate this time round, but to defeat. I don't see. In fact, our game, it is called the Kenyan game, the steeplechase. It's called the Kenyan race. I can see it for the very first time under threat. Somebody from the UK, painful. It's painful. The UK
number 1, the US number 2.
51 years later, the UK is back,
and the USA number 2.
Latif, you're going to hate me for this. I don't mean to be a cynic, but just this afternoon on my way here, I was looking at the rankings. All the different goals, etc., the alternating number 1 position between the US and China, etc. And I couldn't help but thinking, if this competition was on other things such as corruption and post-election violence, I think you know where Kenya would be. But I'll just leave that thought there. I couldn't help having.
I think it's not that bad. I think you guys are making it through.
The glass is half full.
No, I mean, look at 208 Beijing. We've not lost a single race that we won in Beijing.
True.
Tell me which one.
True.
Yeah.
None of the races that we have
so
lost
not
so
in
far
10,000 men,
traditional
not in
races.
10,000 women, not in women marathon. We can only be accused of not improving on Beijing, but we've not. When I was coming up here, I was on Twitter and I saw Pamela Jerimo following me, and I said that's ironical because she cannot follow me. I can only follow her. She's so fast.
Of you.
Exactly. But we are still waiting for 800 meters for men, for
Both
women.
men and women.
To shine.
1,500 meters in the middle races. I'm still hopeful that we can, our women can revenge on Dibaba in 5,000 meters. I still hope that within even the 4x4s we can be able to do something. I think there's still so much coming up. And Benji, I hear you about the table, but when you tell me that China has won a medal in bouncing castle, I mean, excuse me.
Yeah, but you see, we also lack imagination in this country. We have stuck to, the old, we were good in the athletics and we have just stuck to the track events. We are not diversifying. We are not giving people an opportunity. We are not recognizing talent. And the problem I have now is why we have not lost any race that we won 4 years ago. The problem is it puts undue pressure on Kenyans because now you are holding your breath. We must win the remaining races. But if that means that we cannot better our performance in 2008. And I belong to that club where we say that you cannot allow people to exercise mediocrity. If you go to London and we have paid for you, you must demonstrate that you are fully prepared. And when I saw the finishing, in the 10,000 meters, I got the view that our athletes were not very well prepared, or maybe the problem is when you have a lot of talent, it becomes a problem again to choose. Perhaps there is somebody saying here, I would have beaten this guy.
I would have performed better.
Britain had only one guy. They put their best foot forward. They didn't have a lot of choice. And see what happened.
But I think I totally agree on the issue of coming out of the traditional
we need to go
races.
to,
we need
to table tennis.
When Danforth
Don't mention gymnastics.
Yeah. No, look at what do you call this one?
And
Is it the archery?
And archery.
Yeah,
yes.
because you have the cambas and
synchronized diving.
So we are busy shooting each other with arrows,
exactly.
but we can't win the archery.
I can take gold in that one. Actually,
synchronized diving.
Synchronized diving.
Yeah.
Diving, we can take that. We swim in the rivers down there. No one has given us an opportunity to showcase.
Because we are very much contented with what we had.
Give me an arrow, I think gold.
This country requires a lot of innovation, and we have to dare to go where it is not obvious for us to.
Stone throwing, the lures would run.
We can do that. A colleague of mine was actually saying that they've practiced rowing all their life. I mean, coming from one island to the next, they'd have taken gold.
He's talking about stone throwing. Latif, are we going into parting shots? There's something I wanted to share.
Yes.
There's a stinky fish brewing in the TGRC Sufuria. The TGRC has had problems right from the beginning. We have credible information that the TGRC report is ready. That is from a senior official in the TGRC. We actually gave, I believe, this was one of the media houses that was given a DVD this morning on the same. What is happening, however, Latif, is that they've been asking for extensions, and they've somehow gotten the chairman, who is himself, I guess, a suspect or a subject of the TGRC, to come back and continue to serve in this body. But what we are raising the red flag about, Latif, is that they're asking for an extension of 6 months and then a winding up period of 9 months. That, in essence, takes the TGRC up to May 3rd. And the reason we suspect, and we have good reason to suspect so, is that it would allow certain names in the TGRC report to bypass the vetting that would otherwise not allow them to contest in the elections, and in so doing then short-circuit the entire system. And that is a huge thing that is playing out, and Kenyans beware.
That's revelation.
Conspiracy theories. This man is just...
No, we have a lot of information on TGRC, and TGRC, as you know, should have been like the process in South Africa to bring real healing and under Agenda 4, but it's been a joke. And again, it's a taxpayer body paid for by your taxes and mine.
Yep.
And so we take it very seriously. And it's failed. It's failed from the beginning. We're glad we were able to push Betty Murungi to leave that troubled body. But let's just beware that what they're asking for, in essence, should be to conceal, some of the, subjects in there from coming out in truth and, possibly going into elections and going into government again next year. And by so doing, just short-circuiting and undoing everything that we're trying to do under Agenda 4 to bring about cohesion and reconciliation in this country.
Maurice.
Yeah, my part short will be about the judiciary, of course. I have seen a lot of reports in the papers saying that, specifically I saw my learned friend, Mutua, saying that Deputy Chief Justice Nazim Baraza should resign, regardless of the outcome of the board investigating him. Yes. I've also seen Kithure Kindiki, yet another learned friend of mine, saying that he's surprised that some of the judges did not opt to resign and take home their package. But what I would say is, for us to grow our institutions of justice and for us to develop confidence in the justice system, we must render ourselves available to try the abilities of our judicial processes, so that you do not run away, you don't chicken out of a procedure that will showcase the strength of our institutions. I commend these judges for opting to face justice, because I always believe it is a valiant man who faces justice, rather than resigning, chickening out, and sitting at home. And this country will never develop a jurisprudence on dealing with some of these sensitive issues. So I commend the judges. I say, let them fight for their tenure. Let justice be done.
My parting shot is on Clinton. I think we've run out of time. But it's important to mention that I feel sad when Clinton comes about to tell us to have free and fair elections. Because that's what me and you have been saying all this time.
For the last 5 years.
Yeah, for the last 5 years we've been saying that. So it's shameful for the principles. Yesterday, they were, Clinton was crisscrossing from one office to the other, telling us to have free and fair elections, and saying the Americans are watching, the world is watching, and such kind of crap. I think that it's important to listen to us ourselves as Kenyans.
And you noticed Kibaki sat on a row with his ministers.
Yes.
He should have sat as the chairman.
Exactly.
Official protocol and etiquette demands that as a chairman you sit somewhere.
Because sovereignty is a process.
I saw a photo of when the Prime Minister was in China the other day, and he met with the President Hu Jintao. The President was on a row, and Raila was on the other row.
No, but
it's not a dinner table. It's a meeting.
No, but protocols notwithstanding, really, what have the principals done? To ensure that there's going to be a free and fair election. Why can they listen to Morris or to Benji or to Moses Kuria saying these things? Why does it have to take Hillary Clinton to come all the way from the USA to come and say we need to have free and fair elections? Why can't we manage our affairs? We can, and then we start screaming by saying our sovereignty is lost. This time we're not going to allow foreigners to come and dip their fingers into our pots. No.
Well, okay. That's Moses Kuria, political and social analyst. Also in the studio was Benji Ndolo. He's the founder director of the Organization for National Empowerment. And Maurice Kimuli, advocate and aspirant. Say again, here's your 1 minute to say.
No, I want to be the speaker of the county.
Of?
Kitui.
Right.
Yes.
There is
somebody to speak for them, Eric.
The speaker of the Speaker of the Assembly in the county of Kitui.
Yes.
To be.
Yes.
Maurice Kimuli.
I think you do all right.
Thank you very much, gentlemen,
for
coming.
That's a vote of confidence.
And we wish you all the best, Maurice. We hope the people who need to listen to you are actually listening to you.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a good week.
Talk 360 with Latif. 98.4 Capital FM.